Hello racing fans, welcome to part 2 of episode 22 of the big Group 1 racing show for the racing season of 2016/17. Now in part 2 of episode 22 I will preview the 2 Group 1s being raced at Rosehill Gardens this Saturday the 25th of March. Another massive day, of course. Last weekend was an absolute ripper with 5 Group 1s as part of Golden Slipper Day. This weekend 2 Group 1s, the BMW and the Vinery Stud Stakes, 2 big Group 1 races, it's fair to say that. So let's not muck around, let's get straight in to having a look at the 2 Group 1s at Rosehill Gardens this Saturday. I start with the BMW. This race will be ran over the 2,400 metre distance. It is race 6 on the program. The horses will jump out of the barrier at 3:30 p.m. You can watch all the action from Rosehill Gardens this Saturday on 7/2 and also Sky Racing 1. Now the big story, the breaking news as I go to record this is that our Ivanhoe has been scratched from this race. I thought it was a very big chance to actually take out the BMW this year, and that's because of its heavy form, but it hasn't passed medical tests, and because of that it has been scratched. You can see there it was backed by the punters at around $4.80. Jamaica is the current favourite at around $4. Humidor, the next best, at $4.80. Tavago is backed at $6. Exoferric at $11. Laquesti Spirit, of course, won the Crown Oaks last year, backed at $21. Who Shot the Barman at $51, as well as Librian. And then Grant Marshall, another Chris Waller trained horse, backed by the punters at a whopping $151. So that is the field for the BMW. Massive race. Let's not muck around. Let's get straight into having a look at the field in depth. Number 2, we have Exoferric, the only Lee and Anthony Friedman trained horse in this race now that our Ivanhoe has been scratched from the field. This horse will be ridden by Damien Oliver once again, and it is coming out of the inside barrier, barrier 1. It was a strong finish at the end of the Australian Cup. It managed to come 3rd in the end after that strong finish. Has won over the 2,400 metre distance before, which is quite a good thing coming into a race like this. If it has a fast finish, then it should be definitely up in this again. Of course, it participated in the Caulfield Cup last year, come 3rd in that race over the 2,400 metre distance. I reckon this horse is a really good chance of being in that top 3. Number 3 is Who Shot the Barman, a Chris Waller trained horse. Tim Clark keeps the ride. It's coming out of barrier 8. And, well, 2nd in this race last year. However, last one in 2014 over this distance, the 2,400 metre at Sandown. So it's been a while since it's won. It's been, 3 years since it's actually won a race, which is pretty long time, to be quite honest with you. It would be a massive upset if it won. Number 4 is another Chris Waller trained horse, Grant Marshall. Jason Collette takes the ride from Glenn Schofield, who rode it in its previous run. It came last in the Sky High over the 2,000 metres in its last run. It's coming out of barrier 3. It's not in the best of form. 9th in its last 2 races. In fact, the first 2 races of this prep, the other being the Chipping Norton, the one that Winks won a few weeks ago. Hasn't won a Group 1 since the Sydney Cup in 2015. Of course, managed to taste winning success last year before the Melbourne Cup. It would be a big risk if you were to give this horse a chance, because not in the best of form coming into this one. Number 5, another Chris Waller trained horse, Librarian, and this horse is coming out of barrier 6, and Glenn Schofield takes the ride from Adela, who rode it in its last race. Come 4th in the Sky High over the 2,000 metres last start. It's coming out of barrier 6 in this race. Hasn't improved in every race so far this prep, so it came 8th first up in the Apollo, went on to run in the Group 1 Chipping Norton, came 7th, and then came 4th last start, as I mentioned. Could be placing chance, I reckon. More of a placing chance than a winning chance. There's no doubt about that. Does have the required win range. Can't rule out. Number 6 is Humidor. This horse is a Darren Weir trained horse. Damien Lane is aboard, and it's coming out of barrier 5. Strong finisher who caught Jamaica, of course, in its last run in the Group 1 Australian Cup at Flemington over the 2,000 metre distance. Now, stepping up to the 2,400, actually has had one crack at this distance. It came 11th, and that was in the New Zealand Derby. As I mentioned, over this same distance it's running in this BMW. Comes to Sydney for the first time, so after having some success in Melbourne, it comes to Sydney to run, and of course try to get this. Try to get another Group 1 under its belt. Not sure how its wet form is. Of course, at this stage, a heavy 10 track is expected. So that's a little bit of a query, a little bit. Not really sure where it's at in terms of heavy tracks, but it's no doubt one of the ones to beat, of course. It's probably going to be another showdown between this horse and Jamaica. Number 7 is Tavago, and this horse, very interesting one. It's coming off a win at Group 2 level over the 2,000 metres last start at Rosehill. It was over the 2,000 metre distance. It was in the Sky High. Of course, this horse is a Trent Buston and Natalie Young trained horse. Blake Shin keeps the ride, and it's coming out of barrier 4. It was a good win, that win last start, and look, it's won at this distance before, so I think this horse is in this. I think it's capable of a top 3 finish. Number 8 is Jamaica. This horse is a Kieran Maher trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 2. Huey Bowman keeps the ride from its 2nd place in the Australian Cup, where it was caught by Humidor, who flashed home. We know about that. Won the 2015 Victoria Oaks on a heavy 9 track. So it's coming to a, at this stage, heavy 10 track. Probably going to be no doubt a heavy track with form on these heavy tracks, so that is a very promising sign. Of course, the Caulfield Cup was over the 2,400 metres. Of course, that's a race it won last year, and so that's very promising coming into this one. Of course, it's going to be up there, I reckon. It's one of the main chances. And last but not least, we have the Crown Oaks winner of 2016, number 9, Laquesti Spirit. Surprised us all in that race. Of course, I bring it up every time I have to mention this horse, because I still can't believe how good of a win that was. How good was that? Anyway, Lee Curtis, of course, is the trainer. And interesting enough, the jockey who rode it to its Crown Oaks win last year, Brenton Adela, actually comes on board for the first time since that run in this race. Is coming out of barrier 9, 7th in the Sky High out of the 9 horses over the 2,000 metre distance. It actually comes 2nd to Winks in the Chipping Norton. Was a bit far back though. We must mention that, of course, because, well, the Great Mare absolutely smashed it that day, of course, no doubt about that. We know that it can win over this distance. Of course, the Crown Oaks was over the 2,500 metres. I don't think you can rule this horse out. I think it's possibly in the mix. Of course, barrier 9 is its barrier. Okay, time now for my tips for the Group 1 BMW, the first of the Group 1s at Rosehill this Saturday, one of 2 Group 1s. We know about that, of course. It's going to be a very interesting race. I think possibly half the field just about are a chance. Of course, our Ivanhoe now scratched throws a little bit of a spanner in the work, in my opinion, because I actually would have tipped our Ivanhoe, because I thought with its heavy form, I think it was the one to beat. But Not to worry, it is scratched, which means I'm going to tip Jamaica as first. I have been on the Jamaica bandwagon for a couple of, well, for its last couple of starts now, and I thought last week was quite impressive until it got caught by Humidor, who of course is a very, very good horse. Of course, it is the rematch of that, and I guess the reason why I'm not going Humidor this time, the reason why I'm not going Humidor is because, and why I'm going Jamaica is because Humidor, not really sure what to expect on a wet track, whereas Jamaica's ran on a wet track before, heavy track, and actually won. Of course, it's won over this distance before, of course, in the Caulfield Cup, so that's another thing as well. So I think Jamaica's the one to beat in this one. It is favourite, and I think it's going to win this race. I think it's been building up to good form. Of course, last week was probably the race the couple of weeks ago in the Australian Cup. I thought that was going to be the first Group 1 it would win of the year. It didn't. I think this one might be its first Group 1 it wins of 2017. So Jamaica first, Humidor second, flashes home always. Not really sure if we're going to get the same on a wet track. That's the little bit of the query and a little bit of the unknown for me, but you have to put it in your top three. It's a very good horse, and it showed that in the Australian Cup. So Humidor second for me, with Damien Lane aboard. Of course, a Darren Weir trained horse. It will become a really good horse though if it wins this race and wins consecutive Group 1s in the space of 3 weeks. Tavago I've put as third. I really did like its sky high performance. Won beautifully that day, and it's won at the 2,400 metre distance before, so I'm going to go Tavago as third. And my roughie of the race, I've given it to Exoferric, the Leon Anthony Friedman trained horse. This horse is, I think it's been in good form leading into this race. It started off its prep in the Peter Young over the 1,800 metres. 6 it came in that race. It came third over the 2,000 metres in the Group 1 Australian Cup, which was a good finish in the end. I think it's building up towards this race, and that is why I'm giving it my roughie of the race. Of course, the odds that it's at is it's about around $10, $11, $12 by the punters. Of course, that's pretty good value, I reckon. If you put a couple of bucks each way, then you might be laughing. So, look, it come third in the Caulfield Cup. Of course, last year. It's won over this distance before. I think it's, obviously the inside barrier may be a little bit of a concern, barrier 1, but, whether it will get boxed in is another question. But I think if you want a roughie, I think Exoferric is the one to go. So, look, it's going to be an interesting race. The BMW cannot wait on now to the next Group 1 at Rosehill Gardens, of course, the Vinery Stud Stakes. So, of course, the Group 1 Vinery Stud Stakes, the last of the Group 1s at Rosehill Gardens this Saturday, is the race for 3-year-olds, race 7 on the card, and it's over the 2,000 metre distance, of course, at Rosehill Gardens. The horses will jump at 4:10 p.m. There's a good strong list, I reckon, amongst this field. So let's have a look at the odds here, and Fox Play, the favourite, coming off a win, and is backed by the punters at around $3.50. Dawn Wall, the next best at $5.50. At $6.50 we have La Bella Diosa. At $7.50 Harlow Gold. Luberton is at $10. Matoya's Secret is at $16. Nurse Kitchen at $18. Massive gap between Nurse Kitchen and Smart As You Think, because Smart As You Think is backed by $51, which I think is extraordinary because it's actually a horse that's won over the 2,000 metre distance. Mo Queen is backed at $101. Concessions is also backed at the same odds. She's Magical backed at $251. Camillelli is also at $251. So that is the odds. Now let's have a look at the field in depth. Number 1 is La Bella Diosa, a Mandy and Matt Brown trained horse. Jason Collette takes the ride back, actually, and it's coming out of barrier 13. Had won 4 straight before coming last in the Group 1 Coolmore a couple of weeks ago. There was a little bit of a concern though, and that was that it had a bit of a coughing incident by, and that was of course the assessment by the vets. So you could probably forgive that run a little bit, considering that was kind of an issue, because, you know, previously to that it had won 4 straight. So look, first crack at the 2,000 metres in this race. Of course, it is stepping up from 1,500 metres in that race, and actually, I think it's, you know, if that's not a concern and that's, you know, fully fixed and so forth, the coughing issue, then if, you know, it kicks away strongly, then I think it's in with a shot. I think this horse, of course, it is up there in the odds. Number 2 is Fox Play, a Chris Waller trained horse. Huey Bowman takes the ride. It's coming out of barrier 11. Won the Group 2 far lap last start. I don't want to get too off topic, but a couple of weeks ago, Bruce McAvaney actually made the point about the far lap and why that's not a Group 1 race and why it's not in Melbourne. Don't want to get off topic a little bit, but I'm just putting it out there that I think it's a disgrace. I think this, you know, clearly, why is there not a Group 1 race named after one of the greatest horses of all time in far lap? It's beyond me. But anyway, back to the race. First in the Group 2 far lap, Fox Play flew home to win that day. Fourth on a heavy 9 track previously. That was at Royal Randwick. It's having a good prep, actually. I think it's finished at least in the top 4 on its 3 of its 5 starts in this prep. So look, it was held up in its last start and it still won. So yeah, you got to give it a chance, this horse. Number 3 is Harlow Gold, and this horse is a David B. Hayes and T. Davennig trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 5. Regan Bayliss keeps the ride. This horse is looking good, I reckon, for this coming into this race. Had second best final 600, 200 metres in the Group 1 Australian Guineas. Could run on and do well over this distance, I think. Of course, in its 2 races this prep, 3rd in the Vanity over the 1,400 metres and 1,600 metres. It came 4th in the Australian Guineas. Liking the look of this horse. I reckon it's top 3 worthy. Number 4, Dawn Wall, a Chris Waller trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 3. And it's won all of its races so far this prep, and one was actually over the 1,800 metre distance at Rosehill. So it, of course, had a strong finish to the last start. So look, tougher race, it's no doubt about that. But with Ben Melbourne aboard, I think this horse is a chance. I think it's in with a shot. Looks good coming into this race. Number 5, Nurse Kitchen, David Bridgeoak trained horse, coming out of barrier 2. Blake Shin is aboard, takes the ride from Huey Bowman. 11th last start at Flemington, and what was a poor run over the 1,600 metres. There's no doubt about that. I'm not really sure what it can do in Sydney. I think I'm just about ready to pass from this horse. I don't think it will be up there. Number 6 is Smart As You Think, a John McAdoo trained horse. It's coming out of barrier 7, and Corey Brown is the jockey. The only horse in this race to have won over the 2,000 metre distance. It actually won over that distance and then went on to run in the Crown Oaks and did no good that day, although it finished in the top 6, so I guess that's decent anyway. And then this prep so far, 5th first up over the 1,400 metre distance at Caulfield, and then went to Flemington and finished 7th at the 1,600 metre distance. It's not in the best of form coming into this race, but you can't rule out because it's the only horse who's actually won over this sort of distance. Number 7 is Luberton. This horse is a B. John Baker trained horse. Glenn Schofield takes the ride. It's on the inside barrier, barrier 1, and yet to finish outside the top 6, this horse. Beaten by Dawn Wall last start. This is his first try at the 2,000 metres, but I reckon this horse might be top 3 worthy. Number 9 is Mo Queen. This horse is an Anthony Edward Cummings trained horse. It is coming out of barrier 9. Brenton Adela takes the ride, and it was at the back and wide in its last start on a heavy 10 track at Randwick. Of course, came 11th out of the 12 horse field, so that is second last. I reckon it will struggle again in this race. I can't really see it being up there. Of course, 9th in the Group 1 Crown Oaks last year is at very large odds. Number 10, Montoya's Secret. Leon and Troy Cossingtons is the trainers. Barrier 4 is its barrier, and Noel Callow is the jockey. It's yet to finish outside the top 6, this horse, which is quite promising coming into this race. It's won its last 2 races over the 1600 metre distance. The 2 wins have been by big margins. It can handle the extra distance. I think this horse, well, it's backed at about $16, I think, so definitely a roughie to watch. Number 11 is Concessions. This horse is a Scott Singleton trained horse. Jess Taylor is the jockey, and it's coming out of barrier 12. Came 3rd in its first crack at the 2000 metres not long ago, in fact. This is a much tougher race though, and I think it's going to struggle. I'm going to pass. Number 12, She's Magical. This horse is a Gregory Hickman trained horse. Andrew Atkins takes the ride. It's coming out of barrier 6. First last start. Pulled up with Canadia and FEMA. So that's a little bit of a concern coming into this race. In fact, that was 2 starts ago now. So it was 2 starts ago and did battle on with it last start to win. But look, I think it's going to be too tough, this race, for it. And I think at massive odds, I'm going to pass. And then finally, number 13, we have Kamali, and this horse is a Pat Carey trained horse. Damien Oliver aboard. It's coming out of barrier 10. Second last start, tried to lead the whole race, but was no match. It is at large odds and hasn't won a race. I think I'm going to pass. Okay, time now for my tips for the Vinery Stud Stakes of 2017, and I'm going to go Harlow Gold as my my first place tip. I think this horse has been building up nicely towards this race. It came 4th in the Australian Guineas last start and 3rd first up in the Vanity, but I think this is the sort of distance I think it might be best suited to. It hasn't won over this distance yet, but I think it's been building nicely. It actually came 2nd in the Crown Oaks last year. Of course, it was a long way back from Laquesti Spirit, but I think this being a big Group 1 over the 2000 metres, I think this horse will love the distance, and I think because of that, and because of the form it's been in, it's been building up nicely towards this race. I think I'm going to tip it as first place, but I'm tipping it just because I think Dawn Wall is someone you can't rule out also. So I'm tipping it as a close second. Dawn Wall, it won a couple of starts back over the 1800 metres at Rosehill Gardens. So that's pretty promising. This is a much tougher race than some of its previous races though, but it looks like it's in good touch coming into this race. Of course, it's won all of its races so far this prep. It has a strong finish when it runs, and so I'm going to tip it as second, a close second. I think there's going to be a good battle between Harlow Gold and Dawn Wall. That is my prediction. And then I've gone 3rd. Fox Play, of course, is a very strong finisher and should be one that should be at the finish. No doubt about that. Of course, coming off a win in the Group 2 Far Lap, of course, steps up to the 2000 metre distance for the first time. So Fox Play is 3rd for me. So first Harlow Gold, second Dawn Wall, and then I've got 3rd Fox Play. That is my tips. And then my roughie of the race, I've gone Montoya's Secret, number 10. This horse has won its last 2 races by big margins, and it's also yet to finish outside the top 6. I think this horse is in very good touch. So I think this horse, if you want to roughie it is I think $15-16. If you want a roughie, then I think this horse is a good way to go. It looks in good touch coming into this race, and wouldn't be surprised if it gets up. If it does, then you can maybe thank me. And that is it for this episode of the Big Group 1 Racing Show. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy Rosehill Gardens this Saturday. 2 Group 1s. Cannot wait. Of course, the BMW and the Vinery Stud Stakes. Of course, don't forget to like, comment and share this video. Subscribe. The Big Group 1 Racing Show will be back next week for the championships. There's lots of Group 1 racing to come in the next week or so. So do subscribe and stick around to watch this show. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Jacob. Hope you're back a winner on Saturday. Bye for now.